this Slow Food seminar, we'll be discussing the topic of cooking to spread awareness. And who better than to share their stories with us than Jamie Oliver, the famous food activist, and Alice Waters, the founder of Edible Schoolyard.
Although I do feel that we have been imprisoned by a fast food culture. And I really, and it's not, I mean, in the United States, it's in the extreme, but it's spread around the world. Wherever there's a Coke machine, fast food culture isn't far behind. And it's this culture that is really changing our lives and telling us that we want everything fast, cheap, and easy. Everything. And that children aren't important, that old people aren't important, that there's no seasons, no necessity to eat around a table. We want everything available 24/7, and it's changed our lives. And so we want them back again. And I think the most democratic way is to go into the public school system. In the United States, it's really the last democratic institution. Most every child goes to school. And we can reach children when they're young and open. Now, I've been working with a teenage group of kids in a middle school for 20 years. You would think that that would be the most difficult population to engage. But in fact, they, like I think every child in America, has a longing to be reconnected to nature and to the table, to family, to friends. And when we began the program, it was much more difficult to convince the adults who were teaching than it was to bring the children into this. And once the truth of the Edible Schoolyard Project is when you grow food and you cook that food, you eat that food. So we're talking about anything. We're talking about kale. We're talking about whole grains. We're talking about food that's really nutritious and good for kids. And they get that. They get that we care about them. And when I started the project, I wanted the whole thing. I imagined it from the very beginning. I have a Montessori education, and I think that it's very much like the slow food. It's that we're trying to win kids over. We're not trying to tell them what to do. We're trying to put them in a beautiful environment where they're likely to fall in love. And that is, in fact, what happened. And these kids came from 1,000 of them from 22 different backgrounds. At home they spoke different languages. And yet, as soon as they got into the environment of the garden and the table, they connected with it. And I think that when I was talking to a friend yesterday, she said, "Be sure you say that we still have the hard wiring for a love of nature and a connection to it, and for a love of children, and for feeding ourselves nutritionally. All of this is still inside us. The fast food culture has not destroyed it. And so the moment you touch those places, it's like almost like water on parched earth. It just sucks it right in. They come to it so easily. And it's why the other reason I want to talk about schools. But the most important part is that I see schools being the egalitarian way of feeding all children real food. I imagine that we could take school lunch and have a criteria, a slow food criteria of good, clean, and fair. And that when we buy that food from local people, support small farmers, and that brings the nutrition into the school. It addresses the issue of childhood hunger. It addresses the issues of all of the issues of health. It immediately gives money to the people who are taking care of the land. Immediately does that.
The problem with the kind of fight at the moment is we need to work as a team, as one voice, stronger, better. You have to remember that the enemy is very rich, they're very strategic, they employ the cleverest minds, and they're well dug in. They're well dug in. And we're kind of throwing stones. I mean, first of all, it was a set of standards. So to put it in perspective, this is how crazy it is. In a time of the worst child health that we'd seen in Britain, we had no standards for children's food in school. But if any of you wanted to produce dog food in Britain, you had to fulfill a criteria that was that fat.
Well, that's because the English care more about dogs.
Yes, the English did care more for dogs than their children. But this is the craziness that we were dealing with. So now we have a set of standards that are pretty good, and it's about nutrition, the balance on the plate, where you can source the meat from, where you can't, what meat content a sausage would be, a patty would be, a burger would be. You know, it was only frying once a week, not 5 days a week. Salad bars. So it was a whole kind of mixture of things that is basic common sense that anyone good or any good parent would do. But now it was law. But I mean, I think what was really important to back it up, and Alice has been talking about this as well, is not one thing that we do can fix the problem we have. It has to be an ambush. It has to be a holistic approach. It has to be the whole school approach. And you can take that approach to a town or a city. But, you know, in Britain, thankfully, 2 months ago, it was made law for every child to learn about food, physically.
Just stop there and give him applause. That's an incredible...
I think, although we've had a massive transformation of the school food service, of course there's still problems. It's 120,000 cooks and 26,000 schools, and it's a big deal. But standards, of course, have risen across the board. Probably over half are good, 40% struggle. But we're talking about a system that hadn't been invested in for 40 years. But I think what's nice now is all children under 7 years old get a free school lunch.
That's not just
So
nice, that's huge.
But I think it goes, for me, it goes further than that, because I think it doesn't take that many people to specify the way that things should work. Like, you know, whether it's the standards for school food, it just takes one person that cares to create that and police that. You know, in a town or a city, you know, it's not okay that hundreds of junk food restaurants are next to the exit of every school. It's that the only way you get big change is if people feel they're going to, you know, governments only change if they feel they're going to lose the vote and not get in again. I mean, in my opinion, governments are obsessed by getting re-voted every 4 years. Businesses, businesses are obsessed by short-term profit. And families are seduced by convenience. And that, when you put that matrix together, that's when you get a broken food system that we're talking about. We were working with passionate people in many countries around the world. And what we learned was that they wanted one day to focus, to have one voice, and to make big, to get a local story to become a national story. And this year, on May the 16th, we had Food Revolution Day. And Food Revolution Day happens every year. And we have over 1,000 ambassadors around the world, in 120 countries around the world. And we had over 10,000 activities on this one day. And just on Twitter alone, we had over 1 billion impressions in 24 hours. And that, I think, with social media and digital technology, My belief, strongly, is that now in the next 2-3 years, we'll have opportunities as small producers, small farmers, as single voices to act as one. And I think that's where changing policies and making our voices heard will become much, much easier. Because doing what I did on TV is quite hard, and it requires a lot of luck. And not everyone in this room has the platform of TV to express themselves, you know. But I think things are changing on that front.